Next on the list, and Ark, what do you have for us?
I have what is translated to the Yuzuki family's four sons. I'm not even gonna attempt. Well, actually, no. It'd be what is it? It's Yuzuki-san, Chino Yonkyoudai, right? I think. I think that's how you would say that.
Uh,
Um,
Yuzuki-san, right? I think. Yeah,
yeah, Chino
it's
Yonkyoudai.
Yuzuki-san. Yeah, Yuzuki-san Chi. So it's all one thing because it's like their house. Yuzuki-san Chi no Yonkyoudai. Yeah, it is.
Okay.
That is how it's pronounced. Yeah,
Yeah. Listen,
or
I'm
the four
white, so I
brothers
got a
of Yuzuki.
debuff.
Yeah,
So
yeah. The
I'm
Yuzuki
debuffed
family's
on
four
that.
sons. Is this? Yeah, yeah, that's fine. That's fine. Is this manga original?
It sure is. This is a manga original. This is
Okay.
from Studio Shuka. They have done a lot of like really I'm not really sure if they are the main on some of these, but they have quite a bit under their belt. If so, but they have like 91 days, Durara, um what is it? The Yujincho series as well. Um, yeah, which actually just makes up a lot of it realistically, which like is enough. I would say to say that they've done a lot, because that's a lot of fucking series at that point. But yeah, and this is also, I guess, I may as well just also do the director at the same time. This is coming from the director of a little series called Crayon Shin-chan. So
Legit, yeah,
he's
just a small, yeah.
yeah, a little unknown, a little lesser known series. Yeah, so he's done Crayon Shin-chan, World Trigger. He's done the Bookworm Isekai as well as the
Oh,
director.
okay. You like that quite a bit, yeah, actually.
Yeah, I like
Yeah.
that quite a lot. So yeah, pretty good stuff there. Pretty good credentials there.
Mhm.
And yeah, this is about, I guess, I could probably just do the synopsis myself. It's for,
Yep.
this might shock you, but this is about four brothers. And the series kind of cold opens on one episode, and it kind of just builds it up over the episode of like sort of the backstory. But the backstory is just that they lost their parents relatively recently, within the last several years, or a year or so. And this is kind of just like the trials and tribulations of them now, kind of like coping with that. The oldest brother taking care of everyone now as a school teacher. Though some of the flashbacks flashback to when he was like, like a senior in college when like their parents first passed. And yeah, it just gets into sort of the day-to-day dramas of that, of sort of coping with that. Certain traumas come up of that, and also just kind of adapting to that life and the people
I'm
around them.
curious because it's like, um, how much how much character development and inter-episode kind of flow is there in between the episodes? Because I'm guessing it's a very episodic on face, but obviously from what you just said slash implied, there has to be some sort of, again, inter-episode development, right?
So like episodes are usually kind of combined into,
A bunch of
or
mini
separated,
mini
or
episodes.
no,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
not at all.
Oh, okay.
It's actually, each episode it's either episodic or like a couple of episodes in an arc, and it's usually focusing on like one
Okay.
brother or one aspect of
Oh,
one
it's mini
brother.
arc. Okay, okay, okay.
If
Okay.
not like their relation to each other. So like I believe the first episode, yeah, the first episode is more so um I guess you would consider him middle. Because the way the ages go, there is the youngest who is I think he's a first grader now. I think he's first grader. In the flashbacks, he's kindergarten. Um, then there is the other two, which are both 12-year-olds, but one is 11 months older. So like the taller one. And
Mhm.
then the oldest one being now like fresh out of college, essentially 23 and a school teacher. Um,
Mhm.
and so like the first episode revolves around the youngest kind of wanting to go to this fireworks show that their parents used to take them to, but that he doesn't really remember much of. But now that he's in like first grade, like he wants to see them, but he doesn't want to. Like they all have like their own shtick as well. The youngest brothers is he doesn't want to make trouble for anyone, especially the
Mhm.
oldest. So he kind of doesn't. So his sort of thing is like kind of a more typical shtick of he doesn't really like act his age. Essentially, he acts way more
Mhm.
mature,
Right, right,
and
right.
isn't really open with the other brothers of like what he would want, especially if it would like be an inconvenience to them, whether it be a gift or whether it be something that would require like the oldest brother to take time off or put him under a little like any more stress or anything. And then that episode winds up revolving around the sort of middle son. Um, I should probably give names too. The youngest is Gakuto, the sort of more energetic, um, the more energetic 12-year-old is Minato. The older, more aloof one is Mikoto, the 11 like one that's 11 months older, and then the oldest is Hayato. Um, and so the first episode is Minato taking Gakuto to this fireworks show and like festival by himself with
Mhm.
his savings to not like um, what do you call it, to not bother the oldest brother. And
Right.
Minato's shtick is that he is like, since he's like the second youngest, and Mikoto is still technically older than him, he has a semi like inferiority complex where he wants to show up for Gakuto as like the older brother. Even though that there are three that are technically older than him and like more responsible, etc. And so his thing is he usually winds up screwing up with the best intentions more than anything. And yeah, so that episode revolves around, they he takes him there. He doesn't show up at home late at night, and then the older brothers find out anyway that they went to this fireworks
Mhm.
show, and then in like a panic, they wind up going there to find them. And all the meanwhile, like Gakuto gets lost, and then they find him on the way to see Minato anyway. And so it sort of like resolves itself, and then the episode closes with them being like, every year we should make time to come see these fireworks, like regardless. And like the older brother saying, like, like I can take time off, like I will for this. Um,
Mhm.
and that's usually like how episodes wind up resolving. It's more so of like a very cheesy, like corny, like coming together scene. Um, because a lot of the fights are very like non-serious in most cases, or like the conflicts, and a lot of it either stems from that or misunderstandings, etc. But
Mhm.
it is a very cute show. It's a very wholesome show, and I would say
Is
the
it
cast is
so?
very strong, as well as the voice cast.
So I'm curious again. You have like the mini arcs, right? And it's like obviously they're developing a little bit more of these like interactions throughout each of the mini arcs, although it is focused on like sort of each like sibling, right? But it's like, um, but is it obvious what sorts of developmental changes the author is aiming for with each of the sibling as the anime reaches its conclusion?
Yeah, so like after the first episode, Minato, it's kind of focused on something resolving for Minato, which is being able to be looked at as at least slightly more responsible to the others. So, he learns to rely on like Mikoto for more guidance of becoming like more
Right.
responsible. But he also
Mhm.
himself gets the opportunity to help out, to become more responsible. And the oldest brother understanding that like, he's not just making trouble to make trouble, essentially.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
because there was like a whole scene where he turns off the oldest brother's alarm clock. Um, because he's usually waking up like extremely early to make everyone like their lunches and breakfast.
Mhm.
Um, so then he like turns off his alarm clock and makes breakfast himself, but the breakfast he made is like absolutely awful. Like toast is burnt, eggs are burnt. Um, and yeah, so that's kind of like there is a step forward in that case. There's another episode where it kind of goes into the backstory of Mikoto and Minato, and that Mikoto wasn't like they actually didn't get along at all. Um,
Mhm.
when they were younger, I guess like the big thing about this series is more so of like a hierarchy of doting, if you will. Um,
Mhm.
where the old, I mean, the old is like takes care of everyone essentially as sort of like the money maker anyway. Um, but beyond that, Mikoto, the more aloof 12-year-old, I think he's supposed to be 12. Yeah, I think he's supposed to be 12 because they're the same grade, but again, 11 months older. So I guess he could be 13 now. But he dotes on Minato, and then Minato dotes on Gakuto.
Mhm.
Um, and so like one of I guess one of the more blatant developments would have been there was a backstory episode where it runs through Mikoto and Minato not getting along when they were younger, um, and then getting into like a big fight, um, because Mikoto wanted to just kind of like be left alone and just sees Minato as like just someone who keeps breaking all of his toys and things like that. And
Right.
then the development there is more so of Hayato um, explaining to him how he sees his younger brothers. Because Mikoto's like, oh, why don't you get mad like whenever I make trouble or whenever like I like damage something of yours, like, and yet like when Minato does it for me, like it infuriate, like it makes me so mad. And he explains to him, like, oh well, it's because like I just see you two as like kids, like you're not
Mhm.
like he's just like I don't care because he's like 10 years older than them or whatever. Um,
Mhm.
and so like during that flashback, he was like 16 or something. Um, he was like, yeah, you're like kids. Like there's not really a whole lot you're gonna do that's really gonna really gonna irk me. And
Mhm.
so then that turns into sort of a defining moment for Mikoto where he winds up taking on the big brother role for Minato and like helping him with school
Oh,
and
okay, okay, okay.
stuff like that, and then getting praise, and especially getting praise from their mother, about like, oh
And
wow, like
that
you're such a
does
great
that
big brother.
continue that does that sort of, relationship change continue on to the next, like, episodes?
So that kind of continues, and it turns into almost like a shtick because Mikoto it turns
Okay,
into
okay,
like
okay, that's good.
Mikoto like looks aloof in a lot of these things, but then it shows like a much more cartoony like with a golden like aura behind him. Because his
Mhm.
shtick is they're like he's like the Buddha. He's like reached nirvana in his brother complex where everything that Minato does and acts like crass towards him in like almost like a tsundere type way, like
Mhm.
only like gives him enjoyment. And like he's like, wow, yeah, he's only like this because he really likes me as his big brother. Um
Mm.
and so that's like his big shtick. And so he's usually shown in a lot of comedic shots with like that what was it called? It is like the halo that the Buddha has behind him. Like the
Mhm.
the halo that's usually like as a sort of like the flat circle or whatever behind him.
Mm.
He's usually depicted in that in a lot of comedic stuff when like Minato is just being rude towards him essentially. After he like delivers him his lunch that he forgot or something like that. So yeah, so that shtick continues. Some like Minato's like a lot of Minato's development continues of trying to like step up and be and like a more responsible older brother to Gakuto continues. And then more developments with like Hayato continues on as well. With his of being what would you call it? Kind of like learning that he doesn't have to um what was it? I don't want to like spoil like a more defining moment, but his stuff is more so that like he can have his moments of sort of not having like disdain for his position, but having like
Right.
those sort of thoughts of like, damn, like what if I didn't have to take care of him? Like imagine like the traveling and stuff that I could do and everything like that. He has
It's
like a
interesting that I do like how all these sorts of different developments are kind of panning out. Although it's like, yes, there are four characters and it's like all focusing them on and it's just kind of mixing them together. But given this sort of like simpler setting, it is interesting how all these sorts of developments are being produced pretty
yeah.
organically.
And I will say there is a very strong supporting cast that has a lot of screen time, which is the family across the street from them,
Hmm.
which was originally just an old man, a grandfather who's a very like aloof, who's a very stoic looking old man, voiced by Fumihiko Tachiki, who has
Hmm.
voiced quite a lot of old characters. He's very typecast because of his voice. Yeah, who would be the like more breakout? I guess it would be well, I mean, yeah, I guess that. I guess it would be it's Gendo from Ava. So, I guess that would be technically his like probably
I
most
think most of
popular.
these are relatively, yeah. Most of these
So yeah,
are
so
kind
very
of,
gruff,
yeah.
very gravelly voiced characters and stuff like that, very stoic. Um and so
Mm,
like there's like a whole thing of after their parents pass, like they think that this old man is kind of just like judging them because the brother took on, sort of more than he could probably handle by himself. And then their
mm,
story arc turns into, this old man, this neighbor, um, uh, letting the youngest stay at his house when the oldest like fell asleep at school, like in college in one of his courses because he's been like so overworked essentially. Um, and
mm,
then that sort of they come together and the old guy is like, I've been trying to he's like, I'm not really sure how to like talk to you guys about this. And I don't know if it's my business to say that like, I'm here if you guys need to rely on someone.
mhm,
And so then it turns into like his family moving in with him as well, which consists of his daughter, who's a police officer, and I don't know, I think in her like her either her late 20s or early 30s or something with two kids. And so then it also turns into, a coming together of the two families where like Minato is best
oh, it's
friends
like it's
with a
yeah.
tomboy with like the tomboy daughter.
It's
And
like the
then the
girls versus the
youngest,
boys, yeah. Okay, okay, okay.
yeah, and then the youngest is best friends with this other like the more mild mannered like younger brother is also in like first grade.
It
And then
kind of
it turns
reminds me
into
actually
hijinks
of,
like with the two families essentially.
yeah. It kind of reminds me of, actually, well, I seem like a very, I guess this kind of dates me a little bit, but it's like, um, if anybody has read sort of, I know a lot of people might have read like the initial like Anne of Green Gables, but it's like there's like a series of books after that that like kind of chronicles how that sort of Anne Shirley like marries her crush like Gilbert or whatever, and then makes like a family, and then like the family has like the the kids, and like the kids all like have like like neighboring like other kids and like families that they all like get along with, and those kids sort of have like their opposing, not opposing, but it's like crushes on like another like families, like bunch of like boys or whatever it is. So it kind of reminds me of that, where it's like a lot of this development is very, again, like it kind of pops up out of the, it's like simple, but it organically pops up out of these sorts of like families being propped up against each other. And
Yeah,
they're just like,
it's
okay, you have these personalities, but you're kind of putting them in a room to kind of
yeah, and so
gestate.
it's like yeah, so it's like, you have Minato who's like the very active young one, and then you have, the tomboy daughter from the other family who really get along. And then you have like the mother, the single mom, and the oldest brother get along and have like I said literally have like a mom's night at one point where they go out and
Mhm.
grab drinks.
Right.
Um yeah, and so it's very organic. It's a very wholesome show, and all the meanwhile, there is the undertone and the discussion of like certain aspects and certain like it's not like super. I mean, it's not like the most in depth, but the certain things of sort of certain conflicts that happen when growing up in like a family of either multiple brothers or just multiple siblings. Um, and
Mhm.
then there's like certain aspects with like Uta, like the tomboy's family, like the family across the street, like certain aspects of growing up with a single mom who like divorced their dad. And like, and then obviously the blatant one of growing up without like your parents, like, and that loss comes up, and there's even like a butting of heads between the two, between like
Mhm.
Minato and Uta when they were younger, of getting into conflict because like Uta was very what would you call it? Would have a lot of conflict with her mom. Like there is a whole thing of having conflict with her mom.
Oh, okay, okay.
Because like she doesn't understand that like her mom was like, well, I can't tell my kids like they're not able to see their father anymore because he was cheating on me like constantly. Like how do I tell them
Hmm.
that? And so since she didn't tell him that, like Uta was very sort of um what would you call it, like mean to her initially. And then that leads to a scene where Minato walks in on her having a conversation about it with the oldest brother Hayato, and he sees her crying. And
Hmm.
that there's literally like a sort of like a scene where they depict it of I guess you call it Minato being like triggered in the sense of like it literally cuts to a scene where it just has the Japanese text for mom, and
Hmm.
then he gets into a massive like a fist fight with Uta over it because he's like his trauma is like how could you do that. Yeah. Like how could you do that to your mother and shit like
Hmm.
that because he lost his. He's like at least you have a mom to like try to talk this out with even if she's not telling you everything.
Hmm.
And so there's
And
a lot of stuff like that that comes up, and it's done. I would say it's done very well. And like you said, it feels very organic because especially the slow way they introduce these things.
I'm also kind of curious. The Like when the other like families, right, kind of come onto the scene, like the other kind of members start coming onto the scene outside of like the Yuzuki siblings. What happens to the screen time exactly? Because you mentioned like there's like a bunch like stories like Haruto like has the conflict with her mother and stuff like that. How does that balance out screen time wise? Because
So since they're
yeah.
paired up, it kind of becomes shared. So like for the because this also is
Okay.
not in chronological order. This is
Okay.
in like the episodes are, but there are plenty of flashbacks. Um, like there'll be an episode where they'll like have all these things, and someone will be like, "Man, like." With like the Minato and Mikoto episode, they're like, "Wow, you guys really get along." And then they'll be
Mhm.
like, "But it wasn't always that way." And then it'll do like a flashback,
Uh-huh.
and that'll be like the episode sort of establishing that relationship and how that changed over time. But with with the other family, with the Kirishimas, what they do is again they like pair them up. So like Uta is paired up with Minato, the mom Saki is paired up with Hayato. Um, I guess Mikoto is also paired up with Uta and Minato since like they're the same age. They kind of get he kind of gets roped in as sort of like the straight man in the group.
Mhm.
Um, and then Gakuto is paired up with Waka, the youngest in their family.
Mhm.
And so like when the episode
Okay.
focuses on one of them, like one of those sort of like age groups almost, it kind of like it pairs them up within that episode. So if it's like hijinks that
Oh, okay,
Minato and
okay.
Mikoto are getting into, like Uta is a part of it as well.
Okay.
And then the same thing with like Gakuto and Waka wind up like, you know, they wind up
So
having
it's
sort of
like
the same
it's
trials and
like
tribulations.
not like a not on face, but it's like if you think about it, it is sort of a more gradual way to like properly introduce the characters because it's like um I feel like if they had just almost entirely cut out like the Yuzuki family and then just been like, okay, this is the new family, we're just gonna run a couple of mini arcs based on those guys. Um, it would
Yeah,
have been
so
a lot more it would have had the feeling of like, okay, you're just kind of running through the characters one by one, right? Like, but this
yeah,
makes it feel a little bit more
The
gradual.
Kirishimas are very much supporting, like a supporting cast.
Mhm.
Like they're not given their own specific episodes really because
Mhm.
like the episode where you learn why Saki divorced her husband and why that family like they're living with their grandfather now, like her father. The reason why like that kicks off with the episode where they're like, "Oh, Minato and Uta didn't always get along and like here's why." And so like that's kind of how they
Mhm.
establish that. And like that's also how Saki gets more screen time when like Hayato goes to like a high school reunion and feels
Mhm.
ostracized because you know he's like a caregiver now, like he is a guardian of
Right, right.
his three brothers, and acts like they call him an auntie, like they call him an obasan, um,
Yeah.
behind his back, and that like that makes him super depressed. But then he goes out like drinking with Saki, and
Right, right.
um, you know she's like, yeah, this will be like our mom's night out. Um, and so like
Okay.
that gives them more establishment, like more development together. And then
Right.
yeah, and like I said, like since like Gakuto and Walker are in the same, like since they're in the same grade and in the same class as well, there's like another like sort of mini arc with those two getting into something like involving their class. I'm not gonna give away everything just because it's like I think this series is fantastic. I wouldn't
Mhm.
have gone on about it so much if I didn't. Um, and I think it's definitely worth a viewing. And yeah,
Yeah.
I think this is probably one of the most underrated anime of this season, definitely.
Yeah,
If not
it's
of this
from
year.
the way you speak
Like,
about it, it definitely does seem underrated.
yeah.
Can I just ask a quick question about the audio visuals? Just overview.
They're very good. They are they are very, very good. I think not only are I mean, so it's not it so like
This
the
is
audio
also by a
visuals
much
are
smaller studio, right? Like it's called
this
Suga
is
Studio, I
like
think.
Shuka. I mean, Shuka's not really that small.
Oh
Like I
wait, they
said,
did Durarara?
they've
What the
done.
fuck?
Yeah, they're Durara. They did 91
Oh, okay.
Days, and most importantly, I would say is probably Natsume Yujinsho.
Oh, okay.
Like
Wow.
the fact that
No, they
they're
did
in
this.
charge of
Okay, okay.
that, it's like, well, you
Yeah.
know, that's a
Yeah.
lot. That's like a bulk of their work, and you know, why wouldn't it be considering that fucking show has like a million seasons? Um,
Hmm.
and like movies and shit. So, but
Mm,
yeah,
right.
so like their their audio visuals are really good. The comedic cuts are really nice. Um, the it's not quite on. It's not really near the level of something like I would say like Bochi the Rock, but
Mhm.
they have cuts like I said where like there's like trying to sort of show the internal I guess feeling or monologue of a character, like when Minato sees Saki, Uta's mom, crying over like the way Uta is treating her essentially. Um like and that scene being like the hard what would you call it? Was it white text? I don't remember if it was white text or not, but it's like this text essentially the Japanese characters again for mom over a black
Mm.
background, and then behind that bleeds in like these warm watercolors of like reds and oranges. And then there's like a scene of Mikoto essentially snapping when they were younger at Minato, like I was saying earlier, and that's depicted as like Minato being this like crass white drawing on like a black background, and almost like the white line work is like almost looks like neon in a way, and him like turning into like scribbles and shit like as he screams and carries on and like breaks things. And it's a very like
Right.
crass drawing. And then there are scenes of Hayato like reminiscing about their parents and about like even like the fireworks show where they just cut to um I mean it's definitely not VHS, but like VHS quality shots of like Japanese town at like dusk. And a fireworks show. Intercut with like fully animated like shots as well.
Oh, what
Um
okay.
yeah, so it's like it cut and it like cutting back and forth between him and that. And there's even a shot
That's, like, way
where
better than I expected, actually, though,
yeah,
although
there's
I actually
also
don't.
there's also a shot where Minato and Uta I'll just say they overhear like a secret thing. Like it's not like a fucking actual big revelation. But they overhear something that they weren't supposed to. Um
Mhm,
that like I'll just say like Gakuto is trying to keep a secret from Hayato. And like
mhm.
Gakuto and Waka were gonna keep a secret from him to not inconvenience him. And Minato and Uta, it shows them at one point like uh they were gonna walk into the room that they're in and they overhear it. And they sprint out
Oh,
of
okay.
her house screaming. And as they're sprinting, one, it's a really good scene, like pretty good cut. But while they're running, the background winds up like starting to blur, and then it just becomes a live action shot with them superimposed on like
Oh, okay,
with
okay,
them like
okay, okay.
superimposed on a live action background
Uh-huh.
as they're running to this other place. And so now I don't know if this was like really cutting corners or not for them. Either way, they did it in a way that looked really good. So I can't really
Uh-huh.
complain. And was really
That's a
interesting.
very interesting way to
I
do
think it
things,
was
okay.
intentional though, because they had like them running in this real this like down this real street, and then like a rhinoceros beetle like flies between them and stuff.
Right,
So
right.
I think it was a very intentional shot, but it looked really nice. And there's a lot of like stuff like that, or not a lot, but it's used like decently sparingly. But when it is used, it's quite nice.
Mhm. Okay, pretty good.
And yeah,
Yeah.
definitely better, way better audio visuals than you would expect from like just a sort of slice of life slash like minor drama slash comedy series.
Yeah, I didn't
I don't know
expect
why the
this either, although,
demographic is
again,
listed as shoujo on Mall, by the way. Not really sure. Not really sure
because
why
it
that's
has the
there.
boys! Come on, man. Because of the
Yeah.
boys. But, yeah, I think it's very interesting that, I guess again, looking back on how Shika did create, help produce Natsumi Jincho as well as Durarara season two. I'm not too surprised at the level of quality they managed to bring up. But again, as you said, I do think from the way you described it, it is definitely one of the more underrated shows of the season for sure. So.
Yeah, and shockingly too, a lot of the brothers are also much newer voice actors as well. Or
Mhm, mhm,
lesser used. Like I believe it looks like the longest the brother with the most roles is Hayato's voice actor, and that is Ryota Iwasaki, and it seems like he's only been
mhm.
active since like 2016, right? And 2016
Oh,
was
yeah.
like, bit roles. In 2017, his biggest role was Pingu, right? So, he's the new Pingu in 2016,
Mhm,
2017, 2018. Um, so he's gotten a lot of roles, but then, you go to Mikoto, the more aloof one, and which also like good showing for this voice actor's range. This is
mhm.
Kikunosuke Toya, who is the voice actor for Denji.
Yeah, I
And
looked at
so
that name,
he's
I was like, "Ah, he got
yeah,
in. He got in
he's
again."
very
Yeah.
much he's very much showing like obviously he's got, range for fucking days.
Chops. Yeah, yeah.
Um and again, all of these voice actors sound like and the youngest she does very, very well.
Mhm.
Has a very cute voice. I guess her biggest role would right now. I can't see it. That's the other problem with Maul is that no game credentials. But she is a character in Blue Archive.
Blue Archive? Yeah.
Hanoka. I guess like the
Mhm.
forehead girl, so to speak. Let me see. I'll post a picture of her in the DM. But yeah, so
Yeah,
she
yeah,
is
yeah. I
from
just
Blue
saw it.
Archive. So I'm not really sure about her other roles if there are major roles. But she's killing
Mhm.
it as Gakuto. And that's her only other like anime role though, is the Blue Archive ONA. So this is pretty much a first. May as well be like a first like major role for her for anime.
Yeah, yeah.
And then oh my god, who is
Yeah,
this?
I think this
Waka,
is
yeah,
her
and
pretty
then
much her major
Waka, the
role.
other youngest. This is like Waka, the youngest from the other family. This voice actress has not like she's had other roles, but it's been very minors. She was a main in
Mhm.
Shoot Gold of the Future. But other than that, now this is another big role, or another role for her. So it seems like
Yeah,
these
this is one of,
are
like, the more, like, major roles. Yeah.
mainly, yeah, these are mainly, at least for like the kids, these are very much newer
Like, newer blood, yeah.
newer voice
Except
actors.
yeah, it's just pretty much, Iwasaki Ryota. I mean, even Kikunosuke Toya is a little bit on the new yeah,
Yeah, I mean
he is
he's
on the newer
newer. His
side.
first
Okay,
role was
period,
Denji.
yeah. It's just that it's like his meteoric his rise
Yeah,
is just
yeah,
makes
like
me
his
it's
first
almost like,
role was insane. Like,
yeah, like the only comparable I think is like of recent note. I don't think even has been male voice actors. It's like Uesaka Sumire and like Fairu's Eye are like the only comparable ones in terms of like achievements currently, right? It's like um
yeah,
as well as obviously, veteran and Mao. But other than those three, a lot of these people are kind of like
yeah,
newer
and
people,
actually,
people kind of waiting for the
now
breakout
now that
roles.
I'm looking at it, I don't know if it's literally if it was intentional, but quite
Mhm.
literally, all of the younger cast like characters are do not have that many roles.
Yeah,
Again,
they're
the
the newer ones
even
usually.
Uta, the tomboy, her longest, her like furthest back role was she started with Azoken as Tsubame, which is 2020. So
Mhm.
like she's also fairly newer. The what do you call it? One of the best friend, like the sort of best friend character. This is also only her fifth role since 2022. She had like a bit part in Chainsaw Man as a side character. And this is her, I guess, biggest role now in
Mhm.
2023. So like and then you get to Saki the mom and the grandfather. Um and then like obviously the grandfather went over his work, and then Saki is
Mao.
Ichimichi Mao.
Yes.
So
So
like I
there's
don't know if that was
there's
literally
there's some good
planned.
names hidden there somewhere. Yeah.
That I don't know if like I don't know if like that was kind of like planned, that like the grandfather and like the mom were going to be, you know, the sort of the literally the voice actors with the most work under their belt, or
Yeah.
like the longest running, or like
Yeah.
the longest careers, and then like literally all of the younger characters have all of the sort of youngest careers at this point.
Yeah.
But it's worked out that way, and that's pretty
Yeah,
interesting.
I mean the voice typings work out pretty well.
Yeah, and I guess like the main thing to say about that is you wouldn't expect that from any of these characters. From like hearing any
Yeah.
of these characters, like these all sound like seasoned vets. I would say
Mhm.
especially for like Gakuto and Waka, uh definitely sounded like way more seasoned. And I would say
That's good to hear.
Uta's tomboyish voice is quite nice. Because the voice actress Misato Matsuoka is not doing like a she's not doing like she it doesn't sound like she's really doing much to, I guess, what would you call it, like falsetto her voice at all. Like Uta's voice is much deeper than you would expect.
Mhm.
Um so yeah, it's been very distinct and very nice to hear a lot of these casts. I guess it is technically like Uta's voice is supposed to contrast with Waka, who is very, very, very timid, a very timid voice.
Yeah.
But still, like the voice cast is killing it. And to see this many like generally new faces, if not
Newer, yeah.
completely new faces, like that, I think is really, really cool for this series.
Yeah. And to see them performing well at it as well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Pretty
yeah.
good.
I
I
went on
guess
long with
any
that
last
one, but
words?
yeah, I don't.
Yeah.
Not really. No, I would say definitely check this out.
Mhm.
I can't really not recommend this to anyone. You know what I mean? Like I don't really know. Like I guess like the only way I wouldn't recommend this to you is if you're like, yeah, I like only watch fucking One Piece or something. Or like
Yeah.
I'm only
I
out here.
will o
I'm
I
watching
am
every
holding out
shonen.
for
What?
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
watching every
exactly.
power
I'm
battle
holding
fucking
out
shonen
for
under the
the One
sun.
Punch Man. Yeah,
Yeah, like
exactly.
unless like that's you, like if you watch anything varied at all, you may as well give this a shot because it's very, very good.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
Alright.
OPED.
Well,
The OP and EDs are very cute, but nothing really to write home about. I say the OP
mhm.
is just fun because it's cute. It's a lot of like the brothers in like different outfits and stuff, and different like
Oh, okay.
sort of like scenarios and things like that. Sort of being like, one might be like a period piece picture of them, things like that. Um,
Mhm.
Now the real
so it's very
question
cute.
is, how many women are in this series?
Is it a
I mean, if you're not counting like super side characters,
Is
you have
there
Uta and you have Saki.
is there is there a family of four girls that
No.
somehow they meet yet? Not yet?
No, I mean
Mm,
they're not. Like the other family of four, like I said, is the Kirishimas. It's the grandfather, the like newly divorced
I don't know,
daughter,
man.
her daughter, and her son.
It kind of feels like there should be like a Brady Bunch situation here that would make the series better.
Also, the art is very, very cute. I would say is,
Yeah.
I guess, my final thing. Like I'll link it in the DMs, but like Waka's art is very, very cute. Like he's always drawn like that.
Are you
Um,
sure that's not from what's that one series with the boys and the eating?
you're talking about the rice
What?
one?
Uh,
Is that what you mean? The
it's
one
not
where like
Dead
the
Man
rice
Wonderland.
boys?
It's is it
Talking
Dead
about the
Man Wonderland?
rice
No, it's not Dead
boys?
Man Wonderland.
What do you
The
mean
one
by
where the
eating?
dudes Isn't that the series where there's little boys and they're being eaten?
What the fuck
Oh,
are you
that was
talking
like
about?
orphans.
Fuck?
You're talking about the one. It's just orphans being eaten.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
I
Which one
forget
is
what that
that?
series was. It was the one that had the really shitty season 2. What was
Promise
that called
Neverland.
again?
Thank you.
Promise
Oh,
Neverland. Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay, okay.
Oh, you think you saw
I was
spiky
about to go.
orange hair and you're like, damn, that's
I was
Promise
like, wait a
Neverland
minute.
right there.
Yeah, and those
Fuck.
shorts. Yeah.
by the
Okay.
way,
You know what?
I looked
Fair.
it up, and the reason this is labeled shoujo is because Mal is lazy, and the manga is published in a shoujo magazine. So
Sick.
Okay.
That's awesome.
Uh,
Very good. Very cool. But
anyways,
yeah, like I said, I would recommend this. My mall score would be probably be 9 out of 10, right?
wow.
Just because like
Okay.
I wouldn't give it 10 out of 10 just because like I feel like again, as I've said in the past, like for me a 10 out of 10 is something like this is or I mean, I guess even this might be like a 9.5. You know what I mean? For
Yeah.
like a slice of life series. I mean, in my heart it's a 10 out of 10 because it's like, you know, if I'm giving it a thumbs up or a thumbs down, I'm giving it a thumbs up. So,
Hmm.
but there's like nothing wrong with this series. And it does a lot and
Hmm.
visuals are great and it does more stylistically with the visuals than it needs to at times. So, and the directing and the pacing's really good. So like overall, like, you know, I don't know if giving it a 10 is like super appropriate because something like Bochi the Rock did like went even crazier than it needed to. Um
Hmm.
so like that's where I'm like, there's like a 9.5 or something like that. Like it could do there is room for more. Um
Hmm.
but like the mall score being a 7.6 is like actually fucking like criminal. Like disgusting, to be honest with you.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, it's
I guess like this mall score is
you know how
a
Maul
7.6
reacts to
because
this. Yeah.
like its OP is like kind of not good. like visually, like it's nothing to write home about. Like it's not doing
I
anything
mean,
special.
Yeah.
unless you're like in the top 5 rankings, in terms of like viewer count for a season on Mall, your series probably isn't breaching an 8.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
actually quite true.
That's just how the
Yeah.
median works, right? Because
Yeah.
the way Mall scores are rated, stuff.
yeah,
You like legitimately need
Like
to carpet
unless
bomb
you
like a
yeah, unless
series
you
with
like
tens.
literally have an army of people giving it 10 out of 10, your series
Yeah.
probably is not breaching 8. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah.
But yeah,
But yeah, it's
anyways,
like I said, very good. Check it out.
right. Well, again, thank you very much, Dark, for helping to cover Yuzuki-san no Yonkyoudai, or the Yuzuki family's four sons, done by done by Shuka, who you might know as the animation studio behind Natsume-san Yujincho, as well as Durarara Season 2. Obviously, again, if you enjoy just a little bit more organic, slice of life stuff with good organic character development, please do check this out.